Greetings, Dave Dickinson here from AstroGuys.com, and I am attempting, for the second time since I've been in Europe here for over a month, to launch a pre-show Periscope for Space Hangout. All right, I got one person, Trevor's joined, cool. Two people's joined, cool. I'm going to just do this for about 10 minutes or so, and I'm going to talk about some of the things in Weekly Space Hangout and anything else that's going on. Weekly Space Hangout's going to be at the top of the hour, and hey, it's going pretty good. We've been here in Spain. We're loving it. It's great. This is totally our lifestyle here. So, yeah, anybody, let me know how this connection works, too. I'm really curious if I'm even going to be able to do the Weekly Space Hangout because the internet connection here we're staying here in an Airbnb in a town called Jimena de la Frontera. Watching you live from the USA, cool. In southern Spain, very near Gibraltar. As a matter of fact, we were in Gibraltar the other day. And the internet's kind of hit or miss here. There's I noticed during high traffic times in the early morning, in the afternoon, like in the States, when everybody gets home and gets on their laptops and their phones and everything, the internet crashes. We like to joke here to say it goes on internet siesta. So it seems like connection's solid, good. I'm getting a good solid connection here, so I should be go for the Weekly Space Hangout. Two of the things I want to talk about in Weekly Space Hangout, well, three, of course, we have the launch coming up tonight. So I want to mention that. There is a CRS-8 launch out of the Cape that's going off. It's the afternoon there in Florida. It's going to be the evening here in Spain. I'm going to stay up and try to do live coverage on Twitter on that. What's very interesting, and I've been discussing with some folks up in the UK and Ireland, if anybody's based up there, they're going to be able to see in the dusk skies the Falcon S2 and the CRS-8 Dragon pass overhead about 20 minutes after launch. So there's been a lot of discussion back and forth over there with the UK observers. I've seen this before myself. I saw Dragon in the Falcon S2 over Maine last winter, early in the year. And it's very cool because you see them as four objects. They come over as the booster, two bright objects, the booster and the Dragon, and it also ejects the two solar panel covers. So you see four objects flying in formation. It's kind of nifty to see. UK gets to see, during the shuttle program, they used to get to see this kind of thing too. They would see after they had jettisoned the external tank, the shuttle come over and the external tank, kind of as a pair, come over UK right after, about 20 minutes after launch. So that's kind of nifty. They're going to be trying to land the S1 again on the barge tonight. It's going to be daylight hours there, so we'll probably hear about that. That will be kind of interesting to see too. I haven't done the Weekly Space Hangout last week, and I know we have Mike Brown on this week, which should be interesting. There's a lot of news to catch up on. I know we want to talk about the Japanese X-ray satellite Hitomi. That's not looking good. There was a press conference earlier today that we're still trying to decipher what they were saying because the YouTube video was in Japanese and there was no accompanying text that we could dump into Google Translate to try to find out what they were saying about Hitomi. I know I've seen it myself with binoculars here in southern Spain twice, and it doesn't look good. You can see it flashing, actually. A satellite like that, when it's having problems. Hitomi, and for those of you who don't know, was having problems. It's an X-ray satellite launched by Japan earlier this year. Kind of too bad. Apparently there was a malfunction 2 weekends ago, and Hitomi is now spinning in orbit. It's spinning pretty good too. The second time I seen it, it seemed like it was spinning. When a satellite is spinning and you see it up there with the sun shining off it, you actually see it flash, kind of like the iridium flares, but they'll go flash, flash, flash like that, you know, and it's you can see it spinning end over end. It's cool, but it's too bad they lost the X-ray observatory, which they had high hopes for Hitomi. I know some of the researchers that work on it are probably kind of bummed. There was some NASA instruments on Hitomi too, so looks like Hitomi is dead in space. Last I'd heard, the Japanese Space Exploration Agency hasn't written it off just yet, but spinning satellite's not good. Apparently there was some kind of malfunction, some kind of event or rupture or things you can speculate about that has caused Hitomi to become spinning in space, and it's probably, if I had to predict, we're probably going to be seeing Hitomi re-enter within the next year or so, unfortunately, unless JAXA can pull one out and get this one repaired. So another thing that's interesting to talk about real quick, I want to mention, is there was an amateur capture of an impact on Jupiter a few weekends ago, and this is kind of old news now, but it's still kind of interesting, and it happened after the last time we had a Weekly Space Hangout. This was a capture from Hungary and they actually saw a flash on the limb. And it's interesting because this was kind of the same kind of stuff we were doing during the virtual star party a few years ago, where we would just aim a webcam at Jupiter and do video. And this person just happened to be astute enough to review the video and notice there was a flash there. And naturally, amateurs, I believe he was from Hungary, that saw this. So he put a call out on message boards and on the internet saying, hey, look at this video that I posted. He did the right thing. You know, it's like, what is this? And some other amateurs start scrambling to review their video, and sure enough, there was a confirming video. I believe it was from an Irish observer at the same time, and he looked at it and he said, yes, this was indeed, you know, we're finding out Jupiter was hit during, remember, Shoemaker-Levy 9 back in the 90s, just when the internet was a baby back then. We were downloading images on our, you know, 4-baud modems or whatever to try to get a look at this way back when, over 20 years ago. That was the first time we'd ever seen that kind of impact. We've seen this several times since. Anthony Wesley, an amateur astronomer down in Australia, has imaged 2 impacts on Jupiter. One I know was a big one in 2009. So as it's interesting as we're getting more all-sky coverage on Jupiter. Jupiter's at opposition right now, so somebody's probably looking at it somewhere in the world, imaging it, viewing it somewhere. Now that we're getting these kind of permanent 24-hour, 7 days a week coverage of Jupiter, we're actually seeing more of these kind of impacts. Like I said, Shoemaker-Levy 9 was the first one in the 90s. Now it seems like every decade or so, at least, somebody catches a flash. There was no scar, incidentally. That's one thing that a lot of people were looking for, too, is apparently this was just that teeny asteroid that burned up in Jupiter's atmosphere. But it was kind of neat. It's kind of nifty to see those sorts of things. Another thing we may or may not get to talk about that I wrote about on Sky and Telescope recently that I found interesting, again, it's been out there for a few months, but I've been looking for the right time and framework to write about this, is that the United States Navy has resumed celestial navigation training at Annapolis, Maryland, which is kind of interesting that this is something they had done until about 2000, and they had figured they didn't need this kind of stuff where you use a sextant and you're looking at positions of stars and you're comparing them to an almanac to say, find your location, your longitude and latitude on Earth. They figured they're becoming so dependent on GPS now that it was something not really needed, but they decided they're bringing it back in the graduating class of 2017. We'll indeed have this sort of training to at least be familiar with sextant and the basics of when I interviewed the instructor at the CELNAV course in Annapolis, Maryland, via email. He said they're going to be familiarized with the basics of celestial navigation theory. So that's a start right there. So the idea, and why are they bringing this back? The idea is that, well, you know, GPS satellites can be vulnerable. There are commercial off-the-shelf jammers that you can get now. If we were at war, maybe an enemy might want to blind our satellites. The first thing is a prelude to a first strike. So the idea is that if this can be in the officers and sailors and commanders toolkit as just something as a backup, you know, in case they can't use GPS. I mean, we've all had the experience, and I mean, I'm the first one to say that I'm addicted to my GPS Google Maps on my phone, using it to find our way around Europe here and walking around both on street and driving in Europe. But I'll also admit, too, that, you know, GPS, I remember in Florida, it used to like to send everybody that came to visit our house down the wrong alley. There was a side alley kind of going up to our housing area, and it liked to send people down. GPS, for whatever reason, it would consistently like to send people down that street. So, you know, it's good to know how to read a paper map, too. And we've found this even driving around Europe a few times. We lose GPS reception occasionally on the phone, and I found it's... matter of fact, we went down to Gibraltar this week. Didn't realize our cell plan didn't cover Gibraltar. So going across into the town for the day, our phones promptly turned into bricks. And we're like, hey, we don't have Google Maps to walk around the street with anymore and find where the tourist information place is or where that site is. So it was kind of handy that in our day packs, we did have a paper map of Gibraltar and the tourist information place, of course. Always will hand out more. So carry those maps with you. Don't just rely on GPS. They're fun to use, but it's kind of an interesting story. I don't know if we're going to get to it on the weekly Space Hangout yet. But, well, we're about 20 minutes away. Anybody got any questions out there? I'll kind of sound the 1-minute alarm before I sign off here. This is our lovely Airbnb in Andalusia, Spain, in Jimena de la Frontera. The kind of a cool little rural Spanish town here. It's kind of our speed, you know, just hang out. And if anybody has any questions about space, travel, science, looks like we got about a dozen people viewing or so. So that's about standard there. So we'll enjoy. Cool. Hey, Mike Wiesner, cool. It's cool to see you check in there. Old Ren occultation this Sunday. Yes, thanks for reminding me. I have a post out there about that too. There was an occultation today of the asteroid 4 Vesta from Hawaii. I don't know if anybody caught that. But the one of Aldebaran, I'm going to try to talk about that real quick. We're in a cycle where the moon occults the bright star Aldebaran every lunation, every pass. It goes through the Hyades. And this one's going to be favoring North America, and especially on the East Coast. You're going to see it right about at sunset. And that dark limb, incidentally, I saw Venus here. There was an occultation in Spain. You might have saw there was a picture on Space Weather. Not mine, but I did take a picture of it as well. We didn't see the occultation, but we managed to catch Venus very near the very slim moon coming up over the horizon. That was maybe about 20 minutes before the occultation happened here. Fortunately, the occultation happened under bright daylight skies, 16 degrees from the sun, not a great time to view it. But if you live in the eastern U.S. Sunday night, make sure you get to see, and you know, you can see, if you can see the moon's going to be 3 days old by then. Use binoculars and sweep around. You should be able to see Aldebaran. I've seen Aldebaran in the daytime. If you have crystal blue skies, it's right around, I believe, 0.5 magnitude or so, not quite 0 magnitude. But you can see a star that bright in the daytime skies. So you can, even if you live kind of west of the eastern seaboard, you should still see that occultation. I'll actually be setting that one out in Spain here, but I'll be looking for your pictures out there. All right, we're about 15 minutes away from the weekly Space Hangout, so I am going to sign off on Google+, on YouTube, weekly Space Hangout, top of the hour in 15 minutes, and that's going to be followed by, matter of fact, NASA TV goes live with the CRS-8 launch from the Cape during the weekly Space Hangout, and the launch is at, I'm trying to do mental math in my head, 10:43 here. We are UT plus 2. Spain is on the same time zone as Germany, France. They're UT plus 2. We're going to have the launch here at 10:43 p.m. So that's 8:43 p.m. for UT time, and then 4 hours after, minus 4 hours from that. The launch is after the weekly Space Hangout. As a matter of fact, I'm getting called now for the pre-show. So, all right, folks.